Hello and welcome to episode 3 of the Slow Crafting Podcast. My name's Nadine and I live in the northwest of England, and you can find me on Ravelry as Crafty Nadine or through my blog, which is themanyknitsofnadine.wordpress.com. Okay, hello, thank you for joining me. This is your first visit, welcome, or if you're joining me for the second or third time, an extra big hello. I'm recording this on schedule, but I know that it won't go up, it will end up going up late, because our big house move that I mentioned in the last podcast didn't quite go to plan, so I'm coming to you from a temporary location today, which is without internet access. So this will go live when we eventually get into our forever home. But never mind, enough of that. So today's episode will cover complete finished objects, works in progress, my thoughts on the slow living book that I mentioned in the last episode, and just a refresh of what slow crafting and slow fashion means to me. It'll probably make more sense to do that first, so I'll do that and then get on with the projects. Right, so for me, slow crafting is essentially going to be about slow fashion. So for 2017, for me, it will be that I intend not to buy any clothes, no commercially made clothes. I plan to make, whether that be sewing or knitting, any new clothes that I do feel the need to have in my wardrobe. Develop my own uniform, so it's something that will suit my lifestyle and my needs regardless of various trends or fashions in the outside world. To buy locally sourced or locally produced yarn where possible. This applies to the making that I do in relation to my own clothes. My children's clothes are a different matter. I will be attempting to make more of them, but without the same sort of rigorously slow approach to making those. Where I got to, yes, locally produced fibres and yarn. Some clothes I intend to knit from the creating and spinning the yarn stage right through to knitting and designing the finished garment. Some of my clothes will be hand stitched, whereas others will be sewn on the sewing machine. And one thing that I did actually want to add in, which I hadn't thought about initially, is that something that packing for the third time in 6 months to move house has taught me. I have way too much craft gubbins. That's what it says on the box, craft gubbins, because it's not actually identifiable for a particular thing, it's just gubbins. Yes, I think it was when I was packing my sixth packing box, just full of random crafting bits, that I thought, actually, I've probably got too much, because this didn't include any of my boxes of yarn or fabric or anything that was sort of in use or currently being put into rotation. So yes, I think one other element of slow crafting for me is going to be sort of trying to develop a more minimalist approach to my craft stash or hoard, so that it's going to be not buying extra yarn or fibre or fabric that I don't need for a particular project and just because it's pretty, and that's also going to mean at some stage whittling down the craft stash that I do have. So probably donating to somewhere if it's usable, or if it's not, probably particularly the fabrics, weighing in as scrap fabrics probably. Okay, so that should cover my approach to slow crafting as a quick roundup. Finished objects. So I'm wearing two actually. The first one is this cardigan. It's the satin cardigan, a modified version of the satin cardigan by Hilary Smith Callis from Knit Scene 2013. I did realise when I mentioned it last time that I'd forgotten to mention what the yarn was and all sorts of useful information like that. If I forget in future episodes, or indeed in this episode, to mention something and you'd like to know what it is I've used, or pattern or fabric or wool, then please just ask in the comment section below and I will try and get back to you as soon as I can. Okay, right, so this is the cardigan. I modified it. It should have been a solid colour with the welts just worked in a second colour, a contrasting colour, but I flipped it so that I could include a colour work section. Now the colour work is from one of the Mary Jane Mucklestone books. It was either the 150 Scandinavian Designs or the Fair Isle Traditions book that she's done. I can't remember which, and they're both currently packed, so I can't check that for you. I have a feeling it was probably Fair Isle Traditions rather than Scandinavian Designs, because they tend to be more pictorial rather than sort of more abstract shapes. It looks black in this light by shoe. It's a very dark chocolate brown. Is a yarn that was spun for my local yarn store. I suspect it's Hebridean. It was in the sort of miscellaneous mill end type pile, so it wasn't labelled other than to say that it was an organic 4-ply. And yeah, I think I would say it's a light fingering weight rather than something that compares more to your sock yarns, and it's a very low twist, lightly plied yarn, but it's incredibly soft. It looked like it should be a lot scratchier and itchier than it is, but no, it's very soft and very wearable. I've not actually got anything on under my arm. I've got a sleeveless top on, so it's next to skin on my arms, and it's very wearable and very soft. So yes, I suspect it's Hebridean because it's not been dyed, it's undyed yarn, and the colouring and just general appearance of it made me think that it was Hebridean. The beige colour is some of the 4-ply. Again, I've had it for a long time, so this was using up leftover yarn, so I can't remember what their 4-ply weight's actually called. The shop's called Woolly Knits. Woolly Knit. It's woolly with one L and knit without the S on the end. They do have a website, so you can check out the yarns through there, but this is 100% merino, the beige, which I'm trying to move away from, but it worked for what I wanted the cardigan to look like and what I had in stash. The blue is actually some Drops Fable Unicolor that I had left over from knitting some socks. I think it's either in the colourway 108 or 103, but because it's leftovers, I no longer have the ball bands. The buttons I had in stash, they actually came from Drumlanrig Castle in Dumfries in Scotland. It was one of, I'm a sucker for buttons, and one of the gift shops at Drumlanrig Castle had a sort of sweetie bags filled with buttons that sort of different sizes but all varying shades of brown, and I picked up a couple of those, and I thought, right, well, seeing as I need some buttons and I've got quite a large button collection, I'll have a root out and see what I can find. They don't actually match. I've got 3 different buttons on here. The very top and the very bottom are sort of a cream with a brown swirling, and the others, there's a goldy brown and sort of a mushroom pinky brown that I've alternated throughout the rest, but from a distance you can't actually tell, and it looks entirely intentional. So yes, I'm very happy with that. In terms of modifications, like I say, I flipped the colours and inserted the colour work. I widened the button band and the band at the other side, because they were, I think they should only have been maybe about 4 rows wide, and I just thought that's I was worried that the cardigan would be tiny and very snug fitting anyway, so I think I bumped it up to 6 rows wide and used slightly bigger buttons than it called for, so that helped. I'll stand up and show you again. It is quite a snug fit, and it sits higher on the hips than I would possibly like. I prefer it to come a bit lower down. If I knit another one or anything similar in future, I will lengthen the hemline. It fits better than I thought it was going to do. It is still very snug, but blocking certainly gave me that little bit of extra room, so I can at least have a cup of tea and not burst out of it. The sleeves, delightful bingoing there. I made quite a few modifications to it, because I changed the length of them and altered the shaping on them, because as you saw from my bingoing, I do have quite wobbly arms and I needed a little bit of extra room. I picked up 2 extra stitches under each arm just to give me a bit of room in my upper arm, and then I didn't continue the shaping as far down as I should have done. I think I got down to about that, just above my elbow, and then worked it straight from there. It is still a little bit tight on my arms, and I would probably, if I knitted it again, miss out another set of stitch decreases just to give me a little bit more room. But yes, overall I'm very happy with it. I'm very pleased, and I think it's actually going to be a lot more useful in my wardrobe than I thought it was when I was knitting it. I probably will wear it buttoned up, so I might as well have made a jumper, but for me that works and I quite like it. Right, okay, second finished object. It's a good job I've closed the curtains as I'm sat here unbuttoning my cardigan in front of the internet. Yes, the second finished object is the world's oldest whip, the dress that I'd had on the needle, not on the needles, I'd had in progress for the last 10 years. It's a little bit crumpled because I've been wearing it, but it's a new look pattern. I can't remember the number. I did mention it in the last episode 2, and showed you the pattern and the pattern number and all useful information like that, but that's packed and currently sat in a van waiting for the new house. So if you want to know what it is, either ask me and I will let you know when I get access to the pattern again, or go back and rewatch episode 2 and it will tell you which pattern it is. Now I've made it out of a cotton. It should have been made out of jersey or another sort of stretch knit fabric, so there are a few fit issues which I have with this that I wouldn't have had if it was made with the correct fabric, but overall I am still quite happy with it. I've made it sleeveless because I wanted, well, partly because I knew I wouldn't fit sleeves under this cardigan because the sleeves are so tight, but partly because as part of my uniform I want to have sort of sleeveless tunics to go over tops and t-shirts, but underneath knitted cardigans. The original pattern did have sleeves in, but I haven't got sleeves on this one. I've finished the edges with some bias binding. I don't, you can't really see on here, but it's a floral print. Now, I actually found the bias binding, it's a double fold bias binding, on my local market stall. They had a big box full of lots of different bundles of homemade bias binding or bias tape, and I had a good 10 minutes of fun ratching through there trying to find out one that I thought, ooh, I like the look of that one, that'll work. Oh, a little meow. I've got a co-host today, lovely little Eddie, our cat. He's having his input on the podcast. Yes, so I found some, I think it's probably made from old sheets or something. It's sort of a creamy colour with sort of pink and blue small floral pattern on it. So I've got quite a few bundles of that. So because I didn't know how long it was and I didn't know quite how much I'd need for the top up, I think I picked 3 bundles up and I only used part of one to do the sleeves for this. Now, I've not gone mad and I'm not getting more stash than I need, because I know that at some point this year I'd quite like to make the Dotty Angel frock, and I know that needs a lot of bias binding for finishing off the armholes and going around the patch pockets and things. So I knew that if I didn't use it for this dress, I would be able to use it again later in the year. Right, it's a bit baggier around the waist than I would like, and a lot tighter on the hips than I would have liked. You can't quite see it. Oh, hang on. Right, I might have to stand up. There we go. So this is probably the length of tunic that I would like. It should have been a dress, but I cut about 6 inches off and sort of split the side seam to give a little bit more leg room. But yes, I think I'm happy with the length of it. I'm not so much happy with this bagginess, but once I've got a cardigan on, you can't really see that. I think because it's quite a large expanse of quite a pale fabric, which for me doesn't necessarily do any favours for my shape, I think I will end up at some point doing some darker, probably dark brown or dark blue embroidery around sort of the neck and down this section and on this band that runs underneath the bust, just to give it a bit more definition around my waist and to break up some of the quite large expanse of pale fabric, as I say. But yes, that's it for finished objects. I was trying to make this a shorter episode, but looking at the time counter, it's probably going to be running up about half an hour again. Right, works in progress. I have 2 at the moment. I have a pair of mittens that I won't show you too closely because this is a design I'm working on at the moment. I do occasionally produce some very simple designs. I think I've got 5 on Ravelry now, under the Many Knits of Nadine. There's 3 knitting ones, 2 hats and a cowl, and 2 crochet ones, some crocheted fingerless mitts and a crocheted shawl. So if you want to go and have a look at those, please feel free. But this is probably going to end up as a bundle with one of the hat patterns. It's using some, I don't know if I can get it to focus. There you go, that's some yarn from an indie dyer called Lal Bear. I don't think she's actually dyeing anymore, but I got that wool from Bakewell Wool Gathering probably about 2 years ago, which was I think that was the last show she did. But it's lovely, and it's a real shame she's not dyeing anymore. It's 100% merino, which if it wasn't in my stash I wouldn't necessarily have bought. but the colourway is Halloween, and yes, it's going to become some textured mittens at some point. That was my stress knitting for when I went on a train journey. It was my first one since I had my children 4 years ago. Not my first train journey, but my first day out without the children since I had my youngest 4 years ago. And it was the longest I'd been apart from them in all that time. I needed knitting to get me through. I was meeting some old friends in Sheffield, and yes, knitting helped me stay sane, and it was well worth it actually. And the girls had a fabulous time without me, which was a little bit sad for me as a mum, but wonderful for them and wonderful for their dad. So yes, I'll show you more of those once I've finished the design, and hopefully they'll be finished before summer, as I could quite do with some hand knit mittens at the moment. It's got a little bit chilly in the UK again. My second work in progress is the hand spun sweater that I mentioned last episode, using the 5 different colours of hand spun yarn that I'd had in stash that were sat doing nothing and just staring at me from a pile. This is what I've got so far. You can see the sparkly bits that you can see is some beaded yarn that I've done that's in there. I have a lot of ends to weave in. I'm not looking forward to that bit. Yes, this is quite thin at the moment, but it's because it's going to be polo neck, a fold over polo neck, to match the jumper that I had on in last time's episode. So in terms of the pattern, I'm pretty much making it up as I go along. Because I like the fit and the sort of sizing of this jumper to this cardigan to a certain extent, I've used some of the numbers from this, and I will adapt to make changes to the fit in the places where I don't particularly like the fit, and where it would suit the design better if it was a different shape. So it's going to be a polo neck with a yoke at the top, but just plain, well, not plain because I'm going to stripe the hand spun yarn, and then stockinette sleeves, but with a textured pattern from sort of under the bust down, and probably slightly A-line rather than fitted. Now part of me, even though I hate it, is considering doing the textured section in moss stitch. Now this is an attempt to get me to slow down. The reason I hate moss stitch is because it's so slow, and I just feel like I'm backwards and forwards and backwards and forwards. But if I'm going to be a slow crafter, then I need to learn to embrace the slow and realise that it's not a rush to finish a garment. I'm doing it for the process and for the enjoyment of the knitting itself. So once I get my head around the fact it's going to be slow and not off the needles immediately, then I think I will sort of begin to enjoy moss stitch a bit more. But I know certainly with this cardigan, there was one point when I was knitting on the body, and I had just the I was on the ribbon at the bottom, and it had got to about 11:45 at night, and I was sweating, and I was knitting, thinking, oh, I've got 2 more rows to go until I get to the end. And I went, it's not a race. I don't need to finish this tonight. So I made myself put it down, put it away, and go to bed. And do you know, I felt a lot better for doing it, because there was no need to rush. It was only myself imposing a deadline on me, and I thought, no, I've got time. It doesn't matter when I finish it. It'll be ready whenever it's ready. So yes, that helps enormously, because you know, if you sat there and you're sweating and you're rushing, you think, actually, I'm no longer doing this because I'm enjoying it. So if I'm not enjoying it, why am I doing it? And that helps. So yes, this might be why I force myself ultimately to be something that I enjoy. in terms of enjoying the rhythmic nature of the knitting and just knitting and the relaxation and everything that entails. As long as I can get it into my head that it doesn't matter that it's going to take a long time. I don't need to rush, and embrace the must stitch. So yes, at the moment I'm a little bit unsure about these lighter green sections, because there is actually, in this bit here, there are two different colours which you can't really tell unless you get really close. So I think overall, once it's done, the brighter green sections won't look quite so odd. They'll still be quite in your face, but they won't look as odd as they do just in this little section here. I think it'll balance out over the course of the knitting. In terms of working out the striping sequence, I actually used the random stripe generator. It's for knitting or crochet. It's on a website, I think it's called Biscuits and Jam, but if you just search for random stripe generator on the internet, it will probably bring up that as your first option. And it's really useful. I've used it for making crochet blankets before, and I used it for working out the striping for this, and it lets you sort of visualise what it's actually going to look like, or something similar, once it's completed. So and you can sort of refresh it over and over again and alter the width of the stripes that you're happy to have. And yes, it's really useful. It's really useful actually. So yes, that's my second project that's on the needles. I haven't worked on the Alabama Channing skirt that I'm making for my mum, mainly because whilst all the hoo-ha and drama with the moves going on, I wasn't happy sewing something that I was going to give away as a gift. I didn't want to make any mistakes with it, because I haven't actually got any more fabric to sort anything out if it all goes wrong. So yes, that's been put to one side until I'm in a position mentally to be able to focus on it without going, oh, where are we going to live tomorrow? So yes, that's the skirt. So hopefully it will be back in rotation by the next time I record, but for now it's in hibernation for a little while. Oh, I didn't say when I was talking about my dress that all the finishing that I did, so the hem, making changes to the hemline and attaching the bias binding to the armholes and things, that was all hand stitched. It would have been hand stitched anyway because I prefer hand finishing items, but my sewing machine is currently in storage. Not sure if it's in the van. I might actually be in the house, but it's surrounded by boxes and not easily accessible, and there's no table to work on. So yes, it was all the finishing on this was hand stitched. Right, I mentioned last week that oh, I thought I'd flipped the video, but possibly not. This is In Praise of Slow by Carl Honoré, because I thought I should sort of read a bit more around the slow living movement in general, just to sort of firm up my ideas about how I wanted to incorporate that into crafting. Now I have to say, this book came out in 2004 and was one of the sort of early works that looked at slow living across the board, or sort of the current approach to slow living. There are elements of it that are dated, and I know this wasn't, well, I'm assuming this wasn't his intention, but he does make slow living sound quite a modern elitist thing to aspire to. Not necessarily something you can do on a budget, and sort of quite dismissive of a old-fashioned hairy hippie approach that has probably been associated with slow living previously. Now, I am much more comfortable, oh sorry, that's my phone, I should have switched it off. I'm much more comfortable with an old-fashioned hairy hippie approach to slow living than this sort of notion of a modern elitist, something you can only do if you've got quite a significant disposable income. So there have been a few bits in here where I'm like, it's probably not your intention, but that doesn't necessarily fit with what I have in my head, because for me it's very much something that should be open to anybody, and you should definitely be able to do on a reduced budget. So far I've read the sections on sort of a general overview of slow living, or the problems with living in a fast-paced society, slow food, slow cities, healthy mind and a healthy body, and slow medicine, and this morning I started the section on slow sex, but I think we'll gloss over that one. Yes, it was the slow food one in particular that really didn't make it sound budget friendly, and when I was reading the section on slow cities, I did think I actually am quite lucky to live in a village, and something that I noticed certainly when I went to Manchester to get the train across to Sheffield at the weekend, was that as soon as I hit the city, my pace changed completely. Now, partly it was probably because I didn't have the children with me, but also because once I hit the city, I had a train to catch. I was going, and got a bit of a stomp on, didn't really make eye contact or speak to anybody, and I'm like, no. Whereas in general life, I pootle about the village, walking around with the pram, saying hello to people that I know, and standing for a chat or chatting in the shops. So yes, it was certainly interesting reading that, and it made me think that it must be a little bit harder to try and slow down your pace of things when you do live in a city, and certainly something that I also, because I was the friends that I was meeting, up until recently, all of them still worked. One of them is currently expecting, so and currently recently gave up work to be a stay-at-home mum. But the other two are still working, and talking to them about slow fashion was quite interesting, because they're well, certainly one of them lives in London, so the idea of not buying any clothes and taking time to make your own, but not making a ridiculous number, just making ones that you needed, and ones that suited your lifestyle rather than were reflecting the current trends in all the fashion magazines. They were met with some looks of horror and confusion, but I'm happy being a little hairy hippie with my uniform and my love of old-fashioned crafts. Yes, so I might mention the book again next week, because I've still got sort of just under half of it to finish, I think. I'm not going to talk about the slow sex bit, I'll ignore that section, but there is a section on slow parenting, which I think will probably have some interesting implications for, or at least some interesting questions around how I parent and how I could incorporate slow parenting a little bit more. Right, I think that's everything for this time. I'm not sure when I'm going to get this uploaded, because as I said at the beginning, we don't have internet access, and we're not quite sure at the moment when we are going to be able to move into the new house. Fingers crossed it will be this week, and ideally before the end of the week. So yes, happy crafting to all of you out there, and like I say, if you want to ask any questions, please feel free to in the comments below. I'll get back to you as soon as possible. You can find me through Ravelry as Crafting Nadine, or on the blog The Many Knits of Nadine at wordpress.com. Okay, Thank you very much for watching. Bye bye.